Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought that, of course, I would give my little fight review and my little fight analysis of the very good performance that Mr. Ryan Garcia ended up having over Mr. Javier Fortuna. Now, of course, in my view, this was somewhat of an expected performance. I did not think that Javier Fortuna was necessarily going to be a 50-50 fight for Ryan Garcia. At most, this was really going to be a 40 or a 60-40 fight. And even then, I think that Ryan Garcia, in my opinion, has made certain improvements. And I believe that he is at least experienced enough, more than likely, to handle someone like Javier Fortuna. And that is why I predicted Ryan Garcia to more than likely get the knockout in this fight, which is exactly what happened. And I seen overall certain channels' reactions and certain people that more than likely were probably rooting against Ryan Garcia's reactions. And of course, they did not have much nice things to say. It just is what it is. Listen, what I will say is this: Ryan Garcia is going to have a very big target on his back, just like a Javante Tank Davis, just like overall a Canelo Alvarez, just like overall anyone else out there who is a big star. And listen, Ryan Garcia is a big star. It does not have to mean that you have him within your top 10 pound per pound. It does not have to mean that you have him as in your top 20 pound per pound, because I don't think that Ryan Garcia necessarily has the list of opponents on his resume to qualify that as of yet. And listen, if you're one of those people stating that Ryan Garcia is not really facing fighters at high quality, I would certainly understand, because I would somewhat agree with you. But however, the Javier Fortuna fight was meant overall to be a step up in, somewhat a decent grade competition. Javier Fortuna, I do believe, is a former champion. No one overall has been able to stop him, I believe, within his career. This is a man that has fought Robert, I believe, Easter, overall, who used to be a former champion. He also fought Jojo Diaz. And I believe at one point in time he fought a couple of other very decent fighters as well. This is also a man that was beating Adrian Granados, who has been known to be a very tough competitor. And he's also won a couple of other fights, I believe, to where he actually was able to upset the apple cart. So the performance that Ryan Garcia had, and of course, for those of you that do not know, Ryan Garcia, I do believe, ended up getting the knockout within the sixth round, and it was a KO. I believe because Mr. Javier Fortuna, he did not want to continue the fight. I believe that he got hit with another left hook, and he stayed down for the count. He decided overall to give up in the fight, and I really don't have a problem with that, because certain fighters realize when they are just completely outmatched. I don't think that there's really any shame in it. It just is what it is. Javier Fortuna is just not on that level. I think Javier Fortuna, like I said, he was going to give you moments overall to hit him, and he did. He is not the most defensively responsible fighter. And Javier Fortuna, I think that once he's seen the size and once he overall felt the power of a Ryan Garcia, I think he understood, wow, this is going to be a very difficult fight for me to try to win. And unfortunately for Javier Fortuna, I think that he tried to do the wrong type of fight with Ryan Garcia, which was to try to go to the outside and out counter him, which I said was a distinct possibility, even though I thought that Javier Fortuna was more than likely probably going to go on the inside, but maybe I did not do enough research, or maybe Javier Fortuna had just never felt power like that. But it is overall very obvious that Ryan Garcia, he does have a lot of star appeal. I watch a certain amount of these channels where when I do my videos on Javante Tank Davis, and overall, admittedly, I also call him a very big star, but I say very similar things about Javante Tank Davis, which is that all in all, that he does not really fight opponents, in my opinion, that truly belong in the ring with him. And I sometimes get these people all in all that are up in arms about that. It's really nothing to get emotional or nothing to get up in arms about. It's just the truth. I'm not a person all in all that minces my words. I'm very logical. I'm very objective. I give everyone a fair shake. And Ryan Garcia, I think, is doing something very, very similar. However, with Ryan Garcia, it's a little bit more understandable, because you can still tell that he is a work in progress. When I take a look at Javante Tank Davis, at least when he performs at his best, Javante Tank Davis should really be in the ring with the Devin Haney's, the Vasily Lomachenkos, the Shakur Stevensons, the guys like that. Ryan Garcia, and of course, I believe he stated that in this fight, or at least after this, that he is not going to leave 140 pounds. Now, certain people, of course, are going to commentate on that. They're going to say, well, do you think that that is his way of maybe avoiding a Devin Haney fight or avoiding a Javante Tank Davis fight, something like that? And of course, he did at least overall, call out Javante Tank Davis. Now, whether he overall is going to keep his word or not, who knows? We know that Ryan Garcia has been a little bit flimsy in the past when it comes to calling out certain guys, but it will be very, very interesting. And I do think that both Ryan Garcia and Javante Tank Davis both have a lot of star appeal. And just like the same thing I said about Javante Tank Davis, it's very obvious that Javante Tank Davis is a big star. But just because you have a lot of big stars from Hollywood or all in all from the other sports world, like when you take a look at the Ryan Garcia fight today, Draymond Green showed up, Aaron Donald showed up, Sean McVay showed up. I believe. I believe that there was a couple of others that showed up as well. A couple of actors. Overall, Jaylen Brown, who of course is one of the more famous NBA players in the world, just completed in the NBA Finals. All those stars were there to see Ryan Garcia. So overall, when people overall tried to say that, oh, Ryan Garcia, he really doesn't have that much appeal. No, Ryan Garcia does have a lot of appeal. He probably is one of the most 10 popular boxers in all of boxing at the current moment in time. He may even be top 5. It just is what it is. People can try to deny that all they want to, but that does not mean that, in my opinion, popularity does not always mean that you should rank high in the pound per pound list. And right now, Ryan Garcia, he is going to have to step in the ring overall with that a better grade competition. It just is what it is. However, grading his performance, I do think that it was a very good performance that Ryan Garcia put on, at least for his usual standards. I do believe that him and Joe Goosen have improved himself when it comes down to it, or that he has improved under that of Joe Goosen. I see a little bit more of defensive responsibility. I do still see some of the same old faults that I see from his style, or all in all, that I used to see there a few years ago. But hopefully within time, maybe he can at least sharpen it to the point to where he could be an elite champion. Now, if you had to ask me when it comes down to it, will this version of Ryan Garcia beat a Devin Haney, or will he beat a Javante Tank Davis? Well, it depends overall which version of those fighters show up. I think overall to beat a Devin Haney, I think that you're going to need a little bit more experience, because Devin Haney, in my opinion, he does have some faults too, but he is very, very fast. He's decently slick, and overall he does have a little bit more experience against higher grade caliber competition than that of Ryan Garcia. But what Ryan Garcia has over Devin Haney that Devin Haney does not have is just pure athleticism. Ryan Garcia, when you just take a look at his power and when you take a look overall at his speed, and Devin Haney might be a little bit more quicker than him, but all in all, that power Ryan Garcia does have, absolutely devastating power. He does have potentially one-shot knockout power. It's going to be difficult for some of those fighters if he does get more experience in. And overall, if he does sharpen up some of the flaws, the small flaws now that he has in his style, or at least I won't say small flaws, but the flaws now that I do believe that he has gotten better at, it is going to be very difficult for someone to defeat a Ryan Garcia if he has the full-on confidence and if he is able to fix some of those flaws. Now, what are some of the flaws that I see in Ryan Garcia's style? Or what do I see in him personally that I believe would be a little bit of a flaw? First of all, I believe sometimes his chin can be a little bit too high in the air. Now, he is starting to tuck it down a little bit, and no doubt about it, that more than likely is a teaching by Mr. Joe Goosen, who can train his fighters decently well. But he is going to have to watch out because not only in this fight, but several of his fights, sometimes Ryan Garcia will either throw a good 1-2 or a straight right, and overall he will get countered by a hook over the top because he does not overall defend, or he does not keep his hands up overall well enough, at least in certain exchanges. Now he is starting to keep his hands up a hell of a lot more than what he did in the past, which is a very, very good teaching, because that's what you want your fighter to do. A lot of fighters, a lot of the times, actually don't know when to do that, and it gets them in a lot of trouble. Even someone like a Terrence Bud Crawford sometimes, who is, in my opinion, one of the top 5 fighters on the planet, he can even get in a little bit of trouble sometimes because sometimes he does not keep his hands up as much as what he needs to. But Ryan Garcia, it is very, very good that he is starting to keep his hands up more and more with every fight. Do I think that he should go next into a fight with Javante Tank Davis or Devin Haney? I personally would not if I were Joe Goosen and Oscar De La Hoya. However, that fight more than likely is going to happen eventually because it seems overall like boxing is trying to get that Ryan Garcia versus Javante Tank Davis fight, because both of those kids, when it comes down to it, both of them are extraordinarily talented, especially athletically, and that is going to be looked at overall as somewhat overall of the 2 best athletes within the 135-pound division. At least that's what they're going to try to sell it as, in my opinion. So it's going to be very, very particularly interesting when and if that fight does happen. Now, personally, what do I think would be the best fight for Ryan Garcia next? I think that the best fight for Ryan Garcia next, especially if he isn't going to face anyone at 135 or if he isn't going to go back down to 135, maybe he could call out a George Kambosos. Maybe all in all, he could face someone that was at the 140-pound division or is at the 140-pound division that maybe is not an A plus fighter, but someone that maybe he could get a little bit used to. It may be able to help him to get used to a fighter that has a higher grade of power and has a higher grade of size. Maybe he could face someone overall like a Victor Postal. Well, Victor Postal now, he may actually be retired. I'm not sure. But maybe overall he could face someone at 140, possibly overall like a Mario Barrios if he goes back down there, but I doubt it. Perhaps also he could face someone like Jose Zepeda. Maybe that would be a very decent fight for him next. And who knows, maybe eventually he might even be ready for someone like a Teofimo Lopez. Those would be the fights that if I were Oscar De La Hoya, I more than likely would be trying to get Ryan Garcia next, especially if you're going to be facing people at 140 pounds. And of course, a lot of people, they're going to be saying, well, once again, if he was truly serious about the Devin Haney and Gervonta Tank Davis fights, he probably would have stayed at 135. And I would somewhat agree with that. But if I were Oscar De La Hoya, at least looking from this standpoint, those fights more than likely eventually are going to happen, especially if you have full-on confidence within your fighter in that of a Ryan Garcia. Right now, I would not say that Ryan Garcia is quite ready for those opponents, but within a couple of fights, he could be because his athleticism truly is off the charts in certain categories. He has a great speed, and he certainly has a great power. He does have very devastating power. Now, I did see a certain amount of people state that they believe that this fight was a quote-unquote fixed fight. Do I believe that it was a fixed fight? No, I don't. I can understand where people are coming from, but oftentimes when a result does not go down the way that they want them to go down or the way that they want to go down, they claim that it is a quote unquote fixed fight. And a lot of these boxing channels or a lot of people in general are not really credible because when it comes down to it, they get way too emotional overall because they're fanboys. All right, when you're a fanboy, that really ruins your logic and objectivity because you're always going to take things overall very, very personally. So it just is what it is. So Ryan Garcia did the best against Javier Fortuna that anyone ever has. And of course, a certain amount of people said, oh, the fight was fixed. I don't think that this fight was fixed. And all it really takes is a look at Javier Fortuna's face and some of the mega overall landing blows that Ryan Garcia landed on Javier Fortuna's body and his head to figure out overall that this fight really is not fixed. A fixed fight is something like a Deontay Wilder versus a Malik Scott. At least I believe that was the fighter's name. That's what a fixed fight is. A fight all in all to where there is not a high grade of damage. That's what a fixed fight is. All right, it's choreographed when it comes down to it, and you can tell because a lot of the punches don't even seem to look like they land. Or a fighter just does not fight back whatsoever when it comes down to it. Something like that. Now, Javier Fortuna, he did not fight back a lot in this fight. He tried in stretches, but I think that he figured out that once Ryan Garcia, that once his height and once his reach got out there, and once he felt that power, there was just really nothing that he was going to be able to do, and that if he went on the inside with Ryan Garcia, he was also going to get knocked out. But Ryan Garcia, he did look very, very good in his performance. I would not give him an A plus because for me to give you an A plus, you have to have very, very little flaws. One or very little flaws. One to no flaws for me to give you an A plus. But I would give Ryan Garcia a A to A minus in this fight. I do think that he does have to improve a few things to get a little bit better as a fighter. I do think that he has to watch out for incoming punches, especially for hooks coming over the top when he throws his straight punches. He needs to learn how to get out of there. He also needs to get better feet because that probably is the biggest weakness that I see out of Ryan Garcia. He really does not have that great of feet. He's a little bit uncoordinated in that category. And on top of that, every time that he backs up, he gets a little bit uncomfortable. That's what I noticed. And you can also see it in the Luke Campbell fight because when Luke Campbell backed him up, Ryan Garcia's chin was wide out in the air. Overall, he was rolling on his heels, and that's not what you're supposed to do. You're always supposed to be on the balls of your feet. And Ryan Garcia does not do that. His feet does have to get better. All right, now there are certain boxers out there that may not have the greatest of feet, and they're still very, very, greatly successful. But at the end of the day, Ryan Garcia, he is going to have to be careful. And I think that the best type of opponent for him next is a fighter that is going to be a little bit bigger, may have a little bit of power, and also is maybe going to push him to his limits. Maybe also going to have a little bit of power and going to really try to push him over the edge. Someone like a Jose Zepeda, in my opinion, that really would be a perfect fight for Ryan Garcia to really get him some great experience. Because Ryan Garcia, you can tell he gets a little bit uncomfortable when he is put on the back foot. He does have a couple of good counters when he is placed on the back foot, but if you place him on the back foot intelligently, he is overall going to get a little bit spooked. So he is going to have to work on that. All right, so he's going to have to work on his feet. He's going to have to work a little bit overall on getting countered, especially with hooks over the top. And in my opinion, he's also going to have to work on keeping his chin tucked a little bit more. But other than that, and maybe overall the head movement could be a bit better. But, that's only slightly nitpicking. But other than that, I thought Ryan Garcia looked very, very good. I thought the head movement looked better. I thought that his defense certainly looked better. I thought that his game plan was better. I thought that his confidence was much better in this fight. And I thought that he put on at least an A-grade performance. Once again, is there certain things that I believe that he needs to improve? Yes, I do. Do I think that he necessarily is ready for that of a Devin Haney and Gervonta Tank Davis? Not quite as of yet. But what I will say is this. If he were to fight one of those two next, who do I believe he would have more of a chance of beating? It may be Gervonta Tank Davis. And the reason why I say that is because even though I would like to believe that Gervonta Tank Davis, from what I've seen in the past, that he looks to be more talented than that of a Devin Haney, his past two fights, he really has not been that impressive at all. The Isaac Pitbull Cruz fight, allegedly, from what I hear, you apparently had a broken hand, so maybe I can give you a little bit of a pass for that. But against Rolly Romero, I mean, really, to put it bluntly, and I'm a person that, once again, does not mince my words, I really thought that Gervonta Tank Davis kind of looked like shit. It just is what it is. Now, in the end, he was able to get the knockout. But all Gervonta Tank Davis looked like to me in that fight was a fighter that was on the back foot, that was always trying to get the knockout and was too repetitive with his punches. And if he fights Ryan Garcia like that, he could potentially lose, because Ryan Garcia's defense is getting better and his power is going to somewhat overall possibly affect Gervonta Tank Davis if Gervonta Tank Davis is not able to get in there with pressure effectively. But if that fight were to happen, I would expect the best version of Gervonta Tank Davis, and the best version that I've ever seen of him probably was in the Mario Barrios fight. He did lose some rounds in that fight, but it was very few in my opinion. It was in the beginning. It was a guy against, who was decently powerful and a little bit bigger, although not A-grade in my opinion. And Gervonta Tank Davis, he was able to show that he had very good defense in that fight. He had very good counter-punching ability. He was able to be on the back foot very well, and he was able to pressure when he needed to. And that's what someone, in my view, at least at the moment, is going to need to do to beat that of a Ryan Garcia. So if Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Tank Davis does happen next, it would be a very interesting fight. But I would say that fight would be better probably in about a year or two. But we'll see what happens. But anyways, that's really about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later, and we will see what Mr. King Ryan Garcia does next. But that's about it. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.